Welcome back to the deep dive. I really hope you are somewhere comfortable, maybe with the lights turned down a little bit low, because today we are firing up the time machine. We're setting the dials for a very specific, and I have to say, a very atmospheric night.
Oh, yeah.
It is Wednesday, November 25, 1964. We are in Elmira, New York.
And it is not a sunny day in Elmira. Not at all.
Far from it. It is raining hard. It's pitch black outside.
Yeah.
And inside the apartment of Rob and Jane, you know, the couple at the absolute center of this whole phenomenon, the vibe is, well, let's just call it tense.
It is a bit off, isn't it?
Yeah.
The notes say Jane Roberts isn't feeling 100%. She's tired, she's pacing the floor, and to be honest, she is really not in the mood to go into a trance state.
She's reluctant.
Very reluctant, but, you know, she sort of feels like she has to.
Right, because the mailman has been, and in the mail there's this letter that, I mean, it basically reads like a challenge. It's from a man named A.J. Budrys. Now, for anyone listening who might not be deep into the golden age of science fiction, who is this guy? Because this isn't just some random fan letter.
No, not at all. A.J. Budrys was a heavyweight.
Yeah.
At this time, he was the science fiction editor for Playboy magazine.
I just love that connection. It's perfect. Oh, yeah, I read Playboy for the articles and, you know, the interdimensional channeling interviews.
It sounds like a joke, but Budrys was a serious intellectual. He wasn't just an editor. He was a writer, a world builder, a very sharp critic.
Okay.
And he was part of this little group called The Five, which, funnily enough, actually included Jane Roberts years before at a writers' conference.
So he knows her.
Exactly. He knows Jane as a human being, as a struggling writer, but now he's hearing these rumors about this Seth character, this non-physical personality who's supposedly speaking through her.
And he's a sci-fi guy.
He's a sci-fi guy.
Yeah.
He deals in fiction for a living. He knows how to make things up, so his radar is way up.
He smells a rat, or at least a very, very creative plot device.
That's it. So he sends this letter, and he's essentially saying, okay, Jane, if this entity of yours is real, have him answer these 3 specific questions.
It's like a Turing test for a ghost.
It is. That's the perfect way to describe it. He's testing for consistency, for a history, for a coherent philosophy. He asks, 1, when was the last time you grew up?
Okay.
2, what do you love? And 3, when is the self born?
Wow. Those are heavy hitters. He didn't ask, what are next week's lottery numbers, or something simple. He went straight for the big, meaty, metaphysical questions.
He did. And today we're going to unpack exactly how Seth handled this interrogation, really. Yeah. All of this comes from what is known as Session 110 of the early sessions, Book 3 of the Seth material.
And spoiler alert, Seth doesn't just answer the questions. He kind of dismantles the reality of the guy asking them.
He really does.
But before we get into the spice merchant, the ghost math, and the genuinely spooky stuff that happens later in the week, and trust me, the ending of this week is properly chilling, we need to do a little housekeeping.
We do. Just to be absolutely clear for everyone listening, this deep dive is covering Session 110, which was recorded on November 25, 1964. We are drawing everything we discuss strictly from the early sessions. Book 3.
And we have to give a massive, massive shout out to the folks who are keeping these incredible archives alive.
Absolutely. This podcast is distributed completely free of charge on all major platforms for educational purposes. We're here to report on this content impartially. We aren't taking sides on whether the phenomenon is objectively real. We are here to explore the fascinating ideas inside the text.
And if you find this material interesting, and I promise you, you will, you really need to support the publisher, go to the New Awareness Network.
Please do. You can find their bookstore at sethcenter.com/the-early-sessions. Buy the books. Read the source material for yourself. It's so worth it.
Okay, let's dive in. Jane is pacing. She's holding this letter from the Sci-Fi editor. She finally, reluctantly sits down, closes her eyes, and Seth comes through.
And he doesn't waste any time. He doesn't shy away. He goes straight for question number 1. When was the last time you grew up?
Now, just pause for a second and think about that question from a skeptic's point of view. Like you said, Budrys is trying to catch him.
It's a trap, 100%. If Seth says, oh, I never grow up, he sounds like Peter Pan or some kind of fairy tale character. Not credible.
Right. And if he gives a specific date, he has to be able to back it up with history, with details.
Exactly. It's a clever question. And Seth, he starts by taking it completely literally. He says, okay, you mean physical growth, growing up into maturity. My last time doing that was in Denmark.
He gets specific immediately, no hesitation. He even mentions a town called Triev, T-R-I-E-V.
Which he claims was near something called Eastern Roads. Now, here's where we hit our first little mystery. Seth gives the date of his birth in this Danish life as 1486.
Okay, 1486. But
Right.
there's a but coming. I can feel it.
There's a but.
Yeah.
Rob and Jane, when they're looking at the notes later, they realize the math just doesn't work. Seth had previously mentioned that he died in that life in the year 1655.
So if he was born in 1486, he would have been what?
Ancient, like 169 years old.
Which, you know, even for a guy channeling through a writer in New York, is a bit of a stretch.
It's a big stretch. So the working theory, which you see in the footnotes, and this is something that pops up every now and then in the material, is that it's a distortion, a typo in the transmission.
Yeah, right.
Rob's guess is that Seth probably meant 1586.
It's what we call ghost math. Even spirits can have a typo.
Exactly. But here is the part that I absolutely love. Seth is describing this life in Denmark. He says he was a merchant, and he's asked what he sold.
Spices.
Spices. And then this entity, this profound philosophical teacher who usually talks about the nature of consciousness and molecular reality, he drops a dad joke.
He really, really does. It's amazing.
He says, and this is a direct quote, "I was indeed rather spicy myself."
I laughed out loud when I read that in the transcript. I was indeed rather spicy myself. It's so good.
It's such a dry, human, witty moment.
It is, and I think that's really important. If you were Jane and you were, faking this whole thing, trying to sound like some mystical, all-knowing entity, would you include a pun?
Probably not. You'd try to sound high and mighty. You use thee and thou and be all serious. A pun feels too casual.
Too distinct.
Exactly. It implies a personality that is separate from Jane's. Jane wasn't really known for that specific kind of dry, self-deprecating wit. That was Seth's thing.
But Seth doesn't just stay on that literal level for long. He answers the when question, he gives us the spicy pun, and then he immediately pivots. He basically tells Budrys, look, you asked when I last grew up physically, but the thing is, I am still growing.
And this is where he brings in the concept of value fulfillment.
Okay, let's unpack that, because to me, growing up means I have to buy new pants because the old ones don't fit anymore.
Yes, exactly. To us, growing up means getting taller, filling out, occupying more physical space. It's all about expansion in a 3D world.
Right.
But Seth says, the value fulfillment of which I speak carries no such connotation. He's expanding, but in terms of quality, of experience, of, well, value, not space.
It's like updating your phone's software versus buying a bigger phone.
That is a fantastic analogy. He's constantly upgrading the software, version 10.2, version 11.0, even though there's no physical hardware anymore.
So he's telling the sci-fi writer, I didn't stop growing when I died, I just stopped getting bigger.
Precisely. It's a brilliant philosophical sidestep that also answers the question on a much deeper level.
Okay, that's brilliant. Let's move to question 2. Budrys asks, what do you love?
Now again, put yourself in the shoes of a skeptic who's expecting some kind of, spiritual cliche.
Right. You're expecting I love God, I love the light, I love all humanity.
Or, sticking with the theme from before, I love cinnamon.
Mostly cinnamon.
But he gives this very specific, almost intellectual answer. He says, I love the inquiring consciousness in whatever form it may appear.
The inquiring consciousness, that's a very particular phrase.
It is. And he adds that he loves continuing creation. But here is where it gets really interesting, especially for any creative people listening. Seth explains that creativity isn't just random, chaotic energy.
Okay.
He says, form implies discipline.
Form implies discipline. That sounds like something a really strict art teacher would have on a poster in their classroom.
It does, but it's so profound when you think about it. We often think of creativity as this wild, unconstrained burst of energy, just pure spontaneity.
Yeah, just let it all flow out.
But Seth is telling this sci-fi writer who, remember, has to edit stories, he has to structure worlds, he has to cut scenes that don't work, that you cannot have creation without discipline. To take raw energy and shape it into a form, whether that's a physical body or a chair or a novel, you have to discipline that energy. You have to contain it.
You have to put borders on it. You have to give it edges.
Exactly. You have to say, it is this and therefore it is not that. If you write a story where anything can happen at any time, for absolutely no reason, it's not a story. It's just noise. There's no form.
So love for Seth is watching consciousness try to do that, watching us try to take raw energy and shape it into something meaningful.
That's it. Precisely. He calls it an amazing diversity. He loves watching us and all forms of consciousness try to figure this out. And then he says that this love is his strength and source of energy.
So he literally feeds off of it.
In a way, yeah. He feeds off the joy of watching consciousness explore itself through disciplined creation.
That is actually, it's really beautiful. It's not a possessive love or a needy love. It's an appreciative love. It's like watching a kid figure out a really difficult puzzle. He's not doing the puzzle for us, but he just loves watching us solve it.
Yes. And that idea leads perfectly into the third question, which is the big one. This is the philosophical heavy lifter of the session.
Okay, question 3. When is the self born?
So if Budrys was trying to trap him in some kind of theological debate about, conception or the moment of birth, which was a hot-button topic then, and it still is now, he completely failed. Because Seth says it's a trick question.
He says, and I'm quoting here, the self is constantly being born.
Constantly being born. Just let that sit for a second. It's such a paradigm-shifting idea.
So I wasn't just born on my birthday. That wasn't the one and only time.
No. According to Seth, that was just one very important point of entry into this reality. He explains that the self, the real you, the inner self, is a state of becoming. There is no static point where you are finished or even where you truly began. You are a process.
He uses this analogy here that I think is one of the absolute best things in this entire session. He compares a psychological experience to a rock.
Yes, this is Seth directly addressing the materialist mindset of the 1960s. He says that humans have always feared things they can't physically hold in their hands. You can pick up a rock, it's gray, it's heavy, you can weigh it, you can throw it. It's real to us because it's solid and measurable.
Right. I can kick the rock, therefore it hurts my foot, therefore the rock is real.
Exactly. But then Seth says, okay, now take a psychological experience, a powerful feeling, a trauma, a sudden burst of joy. You can't hold it. You can't put it on a scale.
Yeah.
But, he says, its weight may be indeed heavier than a rock.
Oof, that is good.
Isn't it? He says a psychological experience can fill you up. It takes up no physical space, yet it can occupy you completely. And just because you can't see it or touch it or measure it doesn't mean it isn't real. In fact, it might be more real.
So he's basically telling Budrys, your idea of reality is limited by your obsession with solid objects.
That's the core message. He's challenging the very definition of real. If a memory can crush you more than a boulder can, which one is actually heavier?
Deep. Okay, so Seth has answered all 3 questions. He's proven he has a history, the spicy merchant. He's proven he has a philosophy, discipline, and form. And he has a metaphysics, the constantly birthing self. But he doesn't stop there, does he?
No, he doesn't. He decides to turn the tables on the interviewer.
He reads A.J. Budrys.
He does. He gives him a full-on psych evaluation from another dimension.
So what does he say?
He starts by identifying Budrys' entity name as Salden, S-A-L-D-E-N. And then he just dives right into his past lives. He mentions a life in Spain around the year 1341, and another one as a banker in London in the 1800s.
A banker and a sci-fi editor. I guess they both deal with speculative futures.
Correct.
Yeah.
Perhaps. But Seth then identifies this core conflict in Budrys' personality, which is fascinating. He says Budrys really struggles to balance discipline and intuition. He relies too much on one, and then he overcorrects and swings to the other. He can't integrate them.
And Seth says he needs to weld them into 2 edges of one reliable tool.
Which is just fantastic advice for any writer or creative person. You need that wild intuition to get the big idea, the aliens, the ghosts, the strange new world. But then you need the cold, hard discipline to sit down every day and type the sentences and structure the plot.
Right.
Seth is basically giving him a free masterclass in the creative process, and it's tailored specifically to his soul's history. It's an incredible power move.
It really is. So that brings us to the end of the session on Wednesday, November 25th. It's a solid session. Seth is witty, he's wise, he's spicy. But the week isn't over.
No, and this is where the whole deep dive really takes a turn.
Okay, so imagine it's a few days later. It's now Saturday, November 28th, 1964.
And the weather has gotten even worse. It's windy, it's wet, it's just a dark, miserable night in Elmira.
Rob and Jane are in their living room. They usually go out dancing on Saturdays, but tonight, Jane is feeling, weird. The notes say she feels excited and exultant.
She feels like something is about to happen, so they decide to stay in and try some experiments. Not a Seth session, mind you, just some, ESP testing.
They turn off all the lights. The room is only lit by the headlights of passing cars, which are casting these long, dancing shadows on the walls. It's super atmospheric.
Very spooky.
And they put a little brass ring on the table and they try to move it with their minds.
Telekinesis. The classic test.
It doesn't work. The shadows make it look like it's moving, but Rob confirms it's just a trick of the light. They try to move a rocking chair. Nothing happens.
And then Jane starts talking. But it's not Jane. And it is definitely not Seth.
This is the part that honestly gave me chills reading it. Rob describes the voice. It's not Seth's usual booming, energetic baritone. It's dry, light, hesitant, almost rasping.
And distant. He makes a point of saying it sounds very, very distant, like a bad radio signal coming from very far away.
Rob asks who it is, and they refuse to give a name. They refer to themselves only as the group, or the Watchers.
Chilling name.
Huh.
And this is such a fascinating anomaly in the Seth material. Usually Seth is the main show. But here, another entity, or I guess a group of entities, steps in. And their whole attitude is completely different from Seth's.
Oh, so?
They're not as friendly. They say, and this is a quote, "Several of us are much older than you are. We watch and we try to help you develop your abilities."
Much older. That implies a kind of hierarchy, doesn't it? Or at least a serious difference in experience.
It does. And they are not impressed by the parlor tricks. Not at all. Rob and Jane are sitting there trying to move a little brass ring, and the group is basically rolling their eyes from another dimension.
They're like, you guys are playing with toys. This is beneath you.
Exactly. They present themselves as educators. They even tell Rob that they teach through dreams. They claim credit for Jane's recent dreams about levitating and flying. They say, "We are helping you with the internal work. Forget the brass ring. That's completely irrelevant."
It's so interesting that they're so critical. Seth is usually very encouraging, good job, you're learning. These guys are just dry, almost amused.
They seem to view our physical reality as a bit of a nuisance, something to be worked around. They mention that the ego guards the conscious mind too closely, which makes it hard to teach humans while they're awake.
Ah, so that's why they prefer dreams.
That's what they say. They even say they can do more effective education after a personality has died and left the physical plane entirely.
We can teach you better once you're dead. Thanks, guys. Really appreciate that.
It's chilling, but it's also consistent with the whole idea that the physical world is just a classroom. And these guys are the tenured professors who don't really have office hours.
Right. Rob tries to get more details out of them. He asks, who are you? Are you family? And they just say, we cannot tell you why, but we must remain anonymous.
It just adds this whole other layer of mystery and, frankly, creepiness to the entire phenomenon. It's not just Seth. There appears to be a whole ecosystem of non-physical entities out there watching, teaching, and sometimes judging.
It kind of reminds me of that feeling you get when you're alone in a room and the hair just stands up on the back of your neck. Maybe it's not a ghost trying to scare you. Maybe it's just the group grading your homework.
C- on intuition today, Rob. Let's try harder.
Exactly. Now, before we wrap this all up, we have to mention what Jane herself was experiencing personally during this week. We talk a lot about the channeling, but Jane, the human woman, is going through her own intense psychological time experiences.
Right. This is her own practice of quieting her mind to try and perceive other realities. And her notebook from this specific week is just full of these trippy, abstract visuals.
She describes seeing squares within squares and white lines on a dark background moving around like complex chalk diagrams on a blackboard.
Abstract geometry. It sounds almost like she's getting a peek at the underlying code of reality, the framework.
And the body sensations. This is wild. She writes about lying in bed and feeling with total certainty like her hands are crossed over her waist. But she opens her eyes and looks down, and her hands are right there at her sides.
That is a classic out-of-body sensation. The astral body, or the inner self, is moving, but the physical body is still stationary. It's a disconnect.
She even felt her thumbs extending through her fingertips like they were made of elastic, trying to touch each other through her other fingers.
And this ties everything perfectly back to Seth's answer to Budrys. When is the self born? Seth says the self isn't limited to the physical body. And here's Jane, a few days later, physically experiencing that exact limitlessness.
Wow.
Her self is literally stretching beyond her physical fingers. She is proving Seth's philosophy with her own nervous system.
It connects everything. The philosophy from the Q&A, the sci-fi questions, the spooky watchers, and Jane's own physical sensations. It all clicks together.
It really does. It paints this picture of a reality that is so much more fluid and strange than we typically think. We are so obsessed with solid objects like Seth's rock or Jane's brass ring. The real action is in the invisible stuff.
Yeah.
The feelings, the intuition, the self that is constantly expanding.
So to recap our deep dive today, we met a Danish spice merchant from the 1500s who makes dad jokes.
We learned that we are not finished products, but inquiring consciousness in a constant state of being born.
And we learned that on rainy Saturday nights, there might be a group of ancient, anonymous watchers in the shadows who are deeply unimpressed by our attempts at magic tricks and are just waiting for us to fall asleep so they can really teach us something.
A very, very full week in Elmira, New York.
So what does this all mean for you, the person listening to this right now?
I think the biggest takeaway is hidden in that third question. When is the self born? If the answer is truly constantly, then you are not the same person you were when you hit play on this deep dive.
You've got new data now. You've got the story of the spicy merchant rattling around in your head.
Exactly. You are constantly becoming. We limit ourselves so much by saying, I am an accountant, or I am shy, or I am this fixed thing. Those are finished statements, Seth is saying. No, you are a verb. You are happening right now in this moment.
I love that. Be a verb.
Be a verb. And don't be so afraid of the things you can't hold in your hand. The psychological experience, the love, the fear, the curiosity, that's the real weight of your life, not the stuff you can put on a scale.
If you want to dive deeper into this, and seriously, we only scratched the surface of the dialogue in this session, you have to go to the source.
Please, please do. Get the early sessions. Visit sethcenter.com/other sessions. The New Awareness Network does such incredible work preserving all this material. Support them so we can all keep learning about spice merchants and mysterious watchers.
And remember, this deep dive is just a guide. The real journey is reading the text for yourself and seeing what resonates.
Absolutely.
I want to leave you with one final thought, a little provocation to carry you into your week.
Seth asked A.J. Budrys, when is the self born? And he answered.
Okay, Seth.
Constantly. So, if you are being born right now, in this second, and now in this second, and now in this second, that means you are not fundamentally tethered to who you were 5 minutes ago. You have total freedom to choose who emerges in the very next moment. The only real question is, what version of you are you going to birth next?
That is definitely something to chew on. Stay spicy, everyone.